Hi, this is Red from Salant Innovations. In this video, I will show you how to interpret the result of the DefCheck error detection program. Here is the output highlighted document. It is exactly the same as the original input document, except 3 highlights have been added throughout. Green essentially means everything is okay with that term. It has been defined and used in the document. Pink means it is a term that has not been defined. To my eyes, they look purple, but Microsoft named this color pink, so we'll go with that. And red means it is defined in the document, but not used in the body of the document. The algorithm highlights all portions of the document, so it is helpful to know which areas to skip through. On the cover page, people use initial capitalized terms as matter of style, so you can skip the cover page as well as the table of contents. Similarly, article and section headers are capitalized for formatting reasons, so ignore highlights on those. On the side, you'll notice that I have Google ready to go and a text program to keep my notes. Let's run through. The first one I see is the credit agreement. This is a name of a document in the context of being described, so this is not an error. Pricing tier. This is referring to the column name here, so even though it is not defined, this is okay. This, though, is interesting because pricing level, they meant to say pricing tier, but for whatever reason, it looks like they forgot to change it when they copied and pasted it. So I would note that this is an error. Since this is an HTML conversion, the document page will be different than the electronic page, so just keep that in mind. Going through, next is the base rate revolving loan. Let's do a search for this in the document. It really only appears here, so let's write that down. Consolidated interest expense. Let's check this one out. Ah, I see. Consolidated interest charges was the defined term, and I'm pretty sure that's what they meant to say. Let's note that. Normally, when I give a report to my senior, I would include what they probably meant, but it's really dependent on your level of knowledge and familiarity with these type of documents. The Telerate screen. This is in reference to the Bloomberg screen in the old days. I know this is okay because I've seen it many times before. British Bankers Association interest settlement rate. Let's look that up in Google. Nothing really neat comes up. Now I know this because this document is dated 2004, and we're doing this Google search in 2018, and you are correctly getting the result as to why BBA changed to ICE. But when you're doing this and you don't get an exact match in something reputable like Wikipedia or Investopedia, just note it for the senior person and move on. With respect to euro currency funding, I know this is okay because it's normal to capitalize that, like Europe, because I've looked it up before. Now notice that euro currency liabilities is in red. The computer thought that this was a defined term because it is encapsulated in quotes. But here, the quotes are not being used to define the term, but to invoke something that exists outside of this agreement. Here, this is the revolving credit agreement. This is the name of the document in the context of it being described, when it was dated and who signed it, so that's okay. If it came out of nowhere, then it might become an issue, but in this context, this is okay. This one, again, the term is not used to define a concept, but it's referencing something that exists outside of the agreement, so this is okay. Mortgaged property. Let's search for it to confirm. It's not used, so I'm going to note this. The applicable margin. Let's take a look. Aha! Applicable rate is the defined term they meant to use. Writing it down. As mentioned before, ignore the section titles. Apostrophe S. That's okay. Sometimes you will also see and the being highlighted in pink. This is because the pink gets highlighted before, and it has a slightly different algorithm than the green highlighting algorithm that comes after. The pink highlighting is a bit broader, and the green highlighting overwrites with exact matches, which tend to be narrower, so don't worry about these things. This one, administrative agent. I know that this term is already defined because it is already green here, but because of this page break 36, the computer is thinking these are two separate terms. This wouldn't normally be a problem if this were a native Microsoft Word document, but since the original input document was an HTML conversion, the page breaks become more prominent and shows up here as an error when it's really not. So don't worry about those. Same thing with swing line lender, as defined here. Now, this one is interesting. The app tries its best to not highlight the first word of a sentence, because that word is always capitalized, but you'll find that alphanumeric or bulletless will sometimes make the program think that this is not the start of a new sentence. So it wasn't able to ignore this. It's not an error, so let's move on. Applicable margin. They made this mistake again, so just add the new page number to denote multiple instances. Commonwealth of Virginia. That's how Virginians refer to their state, so that's okay. Government or authority. Let's see. The defined term is governmental authority. Let's note that. Public Utility Holding Company Act. I think this is highlighted due to the page break issue, but let's Google it. Okay, so Google confirms that it's legit. Let's move on. Copyrights, patents, or trademarks. Notice that they are specifically saying that this term is defined in the security agreement. Since we don't have that document, we will assume that it is defined correctly there. Early termination date. It says as defined elsewhere, so let's assume it is done correctly there and move on. United States government. Sometimes people capitalize the G, sometimes they don't. Based on my experience of having reviewed many contracts, it probably doesn't rise to the level of being an error, so I think I'm going to let it go. Collateral release date. Sounds important. Let's search for it. They probably meant collateral termination date. You know, important concepts like that, you have to get it right, but it is what it is. Let's write it down. Indemnified party. That's not defined. I think they meant to use the term indemnity because they both mean the party receiving indemnity. Okay, let's write it down. USA Patriot Act. This is showing up because Patriot part is not all capitalized, because Patriot is also an acronym. You can see it when you Google it, but I've seen it like this many times, and everyone knows which law you're talking about, so if I were an associate in this deal, I would probably let this one go. But if you're more comfortable writing it down, that's okay too. Same thing with the United States government. These little judgment calls you have with yourself will be a big part of your life as a junior legal professional. So I would count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 unique errors. Well, I hope this video was helpful in reviewing the highlighted document. Thank you for watching.